Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. Today it's January 30th, and it's a perfect time to start talking about planting seeds. Now, before I get talking about planting seeds, I just wanted to talk about potting up some little plants. Now, these are some cucumbers, which are way early for our area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out. These have been under the grow light. The soil, I can tell, is really cool because it's out in my shop. It's about 50 degrees, maybe 45. But I wanted to show these roots. Now, when you're going to pot up a plant, you want to do it before the roots are root bound, but you want a good root structure. And I'm just going to move them up to this size pot and then give them a little more grow time before I put them into the ground. We've really got some cold weather that's going on here, so even in the greenhouse these will most likely not want it, but I'll just put a little bit of soil in the bottom. I'll set my plant in there, and then I'll just fill around it. It's not a big thing, and sorry I can't get this on camera because I've only got so much room here. So, but anyway, once you put some soil in here, and I'm just using a potting mix that I had left over from some other projects that I was doing, but make sure you press it around lightly around the edges so it gets most of the air out of there. Then once you get all that done, it's time to take and water these in, make sure they've got plenty of moisture. But it's as simple as that. But normally when I'm talking about seeds starting, I don't have plants that are ready to pot up at the same time. Also, while we're talking about this, these dozen seeds were all planted at the same time, one seed per cell. Now you can see the difference in the levels of these, how big, and then it goes down, and then you've got one that's just now coming up. Now these were planted quite a while back. I didn't date these because I wasn't concerned as far as when I planted these, but what I'm intending to do, I lost my earlier ones to a freeze because I didn't put protection on them, didn't realize it was going to get cold as it was. But these I'm going to try to put out in the greenhouse and see if I can't get them growing early, because I love fresh cucumbers. So the earlier I can get them, the better. But I'm going to put these aside, and then we're going to talk about seeds. When we start talking about seeds, now we need to select a variety that we're going to plant. Now I have, right now is the time to plant. Now a lot of people say I'm in this zone, I'm in this zone, I'm in this zone. Your zone has nothing to do with when you start your seeds, regardless of what some people will try to tell you, because the thing that determines when to plant seed is your average last frost date. So if you just go on the internet, you put in a search engine, average last frost date for your area, and it'll give you a time. Now this is an average, so it could be the last frost could come earlier, or it could actually come later. So, but that's what the concern is going to be when you're planting tomatoes. And depending on your grow system, if you have grow lights that you put these under, you can start these earlier. Now, if you're using window light, you're going to tend to have a little more leggy plants because they like a lot of light. Now, I know some people that use shop lights for their grow lights, and I've seen some videos where they leave them on 24 hours. Now, plants usually need a rest stage. Otherwise, what's going to happen is they're going to get stressed. They're going to start blooming early. A lot of times they'll be stunted, stuff like that. But with using shop lights, they don't give exactly the correct light, so it's going to be a little bit less than what the light that's needed. Now you might get a daylight bulb, which would give you a little bit higher Kelvin rating. You know, if you could get 5,000 Kelvin, that's a good a good amount to keep it, but as far as they don't give the true colors for growing. Now I am fixing to set up a grow station. I've got some grow lights that I've made, but I've actually purchased some, and they'll be here in a few days. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a growing station, and we'll go through that process. And this is a relatively inexpensive light system, and it really seems to grow good plants from what I've seen in comparison with the other grow lights. So, but anyway, understand if you're putting them under grow lights and you've got good quality grow lights, the plant is going to grow faster. So you're going to need to adjust accordingly. Either you'll end up potting up like my cucumber plants or something like that. But anyway, what I'm going to do today, I'm going to select some tomatoes, and I have quite a few, but I'm going to kind of select a lot of these. I might plant some more different varieties later on if I find that I have the room and want to put those in. But I'm going to get some varieties that I really like that I planted last year. You know, some basics like we'll do a black cherry. Definitely this year we're going to do the Brad's Atomic Grape, and I do have some saved seeds from that, and that was part of the deal. And we're going to do a black cherry. I love the flavor of this one, and we're going to have to do a nice cherry tomato. Now I do have the Sweet 100. They produce pretty good, but that is not like my favorite for that. But then, and it looks like I got a pepper one mixed in there. But anyway, I'm going to select these and go. Now, what I want to say is these seeds were all in my freezer. So when I take them out and I have them in a Ziploc freezer bag, the ones that aren't actually in Mylar, and I give them time to acclimate, because when they're in these paper packets and you take them out of the freezer, and if you don't let them get to the acclimated to your room temperature, what's going to happen is they're cold, and if the humidity's high enough, and usually it is in most houses, or and depending on where you're at, they're going to start drawing moisture, and this will shorten the life of your seeds, you know, drawing that moisture into them, and then they might get stimulated a little bit, but then they get put back in the freezer. So you don't want to do that. I've seen to where when it's rained and the humidity is really high, I've actually got droplets of water on the bag. So realize this when you take them out. But freezing them is an excellent story. We'll be planting tomatoes, and we'll be planting a variety of peppers today. All right, I've managed to narrow it down just a little bit. We're going to do some Brad's Atomic Grape. I really like the flavor of this, and I like the colors that comes with it. And I've heard some people told me it wasn't real productive. Now, I planted these last year. I had planted about 6 seeds. I wanted to get seeds to save, which I have plenty. But I wanted to see the productivity too. So I planted 6 of these. I lost 2 of them to different things. A lot of it was conditions and stuff like that. But anyway, the 4 that I had left really produced good, and like I say, I like the flavor. They make a pretty good sized grape tomato. The other one that's been my favorite since I've started growing it is the black cherry, which I saved seeds from it too. So that'll be another selection. Now, I'm going to plant cherry tomato. Now, this is one that I saved. This is a larger red cherry. This is one that I've grown from seeds that I saved. I've got some Cherokee purples. Cherokee purple is a good tomato. It's not the most. Being it's a heirloom type tomato, it doesn't do well as far as some of the other hybrid varieties, but it's really a tasty tomato. It may be more subject to cracking, stuff like that, but we're going to grow some more of them because they're good. Now, one that I really liked that I grew last year was the red pear tomato. Now, they have a red pear cherry tomato, but this is red pear. It's a beefsteak type. It's a really great one. And I'm going to plant this for like my main tomato because it really produces good and it's got good flavor. Now, this year, my sister-in-law gave me some seeds. Now, this is Italian variety, just like this red pear tomato is Italian variety. This is Corday Blue. Corday Blue, it's, like I say, it's Italian, but it's the Oxheart tomato, and this is supposed to be a good one. These are, both of these are, you know, a little over half a pound tomatoes, which are great. Now, some of these red pears, they can really get big, going on to a pound, but as far as advertised size. And we've got Sun Gold. Now, I hadn't grown Sun Gold, and the seeds are always expensive, 10 seeds for almost $4. But I'm going to grow some Sun Gold this year, and we're going to see how well the production is on them, if they're worth the hype. And then I've got a orange tomato. This is kind of like a Kellogg's, but it's not. This is one that year before last I had purchased some seeds, and I had a couple of these tomato plants come up in there, so I saved seeds from them. And they produced a really good orange tomato. And I'm going this second generation of those seeds, so I'm going to see how well they do this year. See if it's kind of a stable variety or not. But like I say, the flavor was it's a mild, sweet tomato, and it doesn't have a ton of juice. If it's gonna, it will have more empty space. So if you're gonna make a tomato sandwich or something, you don't have a bunch of juice to run all over. So I'm gonna plant this one again. And then I've got, this was a F1 tomato, and I've saved the seeds for, which are red snapper. It was a determinant, but it had nice sized tomatoes, and I'm going to see what happens in its second year. See how this seed will perform. So I'm going to plant some of these just as an experimental thing. So I really have a lot of tomatoes again, and sometimes, you know, and of course I've got a lot of garden space, so I can do this. But some of you may have to narrow down your particular varieties, but let me get started on this. When it comes to planting tomato seeds, and I've got all my tags here, I'm ready. I put my mix in here. Now you can you can pick up some seed starter mix at the big box stores. I use sifted compost, so I get the finer stuff out, and then I mix it with peat moss 50-50, and I've changed different seeds, different processes a lot of times. But whenever you decide to start them, and say you're going to this is your first year growing, you don't have anything. Now you can pick up these came from Amazon. You can tell these are what your normal potted plants would come from at your local supplier. Now, I do have some that are considerably bigger. These will be what I start my peppers in. You could start your tomatoes in here, but what I recommend is starting them like this. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to put these seeds in here, and I do have a video, and maybe I'll remember to link it up to where I'm pricking these out. Once they come up and they get their leaves on them, we'll pot them up. Now, a lot of people want to grow their plants in big cups. Now, I'm telling more and more people I don't recommend this. Now, when you pot them up, well, that's fine. Now, if you can get your little cups like this, and especially clear ones so you can see your root growth, this is more ideal. You know, it's more to the size of this, but the reason why I say that is what people tend to do is they overwater in these, and a lot of people end up with their plants failing because they're putting too much water there, the roots start getting some kind of fungus or different things, and then they end up dying. So with these, if you do water them, they're less likely to get overwatered. If you can find the clear ones, you can see when the roots start to form real good, and then you can, once they do that, then you can pot them up to a bigger one. I always like potting up, just like I could have started my cucumbers in a big pot, but I find they do grow a lot better if I catch them at certain stages and pot them up. They seem to perform better. Now, if it was warm and they're the size where like I had them in roots like that, you could put them directly in the ground. But depending on your situation is going to depend on how you're going to grow a particular item. But anyway, let's get into this. We've kind of talked about the cup situation, and like I say, you can buy all this stuff. It lasts. These are been used at, I think, at least 3 seasons. You can see they're kind of a little bit bunged up because they're cheap, but they work. So you know, that's the way I'd recommend going. Now the first one I'm going to start with is the red snapper, and I'm going to show you how I do this as far as with the seeds. Now, we want to make sure we get the seeds where we want them. We don't want to intermix, because otherwise we'll have a mess in our rows. But all I'm doing here, as you can see, and I'm going to plant at least a third more seeds than what I want plants. For one, if you have extra plants, there's always somebody that's happy to take them off your hands. But if you don't have them and you need them, then you've got a situation. So what I'm going to do to keep from having a situation, I'm going to put these seeds, extra seeds in there, and have that come up. Now make sure, if you're doing this, make sure you don't get any of your seeds confused. Like I say, you'd hate to want to grow a certain type of plant and not have it. Now whenever I put this in these cell trays, and I'm using these individual trays like this, now I don't pack this in like I would if I was planting if I was up potting, or if I was planting it in a permanent cell like these. I don't pack it down. I just put it in there and I kind of bump it down and then level it off. And the reason for that is, when you come back and get ready to prick these out, the soil is not going to be all compact hard, and it's going to be a little bit easier to separate it. And the reason why I do this way, and you can look at some of my older videos, but tomato plants, no matter how you plant them, they're going to be a little bit leggy when they come up. Even if you've got good grow light, a lot of times it tends to be a little leggy. Well, you can take this way, you prick it out, and whenever you plant it into its container, and I'll go into these larger ones once they come out of here. But when you put them in here, you can set them deeper, and you'll have a stronger root network, but you won't have that legginess too. So anyway, I'm going to finish putting these seeds in each of these here, and then we'll go on to the next step. I got them all in their spots. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to take your hand and start patting these down. What's going to happen, they're going to stick to your fingers. Now, you can take some of your compost, you can put on top of it, or like I like to do is I like to take some perlite and sprinkle it up on top of them. And then once I get this all sprinkled on here, then I'll take and mash it down a little bit. That way it makes good contact together, but that way I don't end up with the seeds sticking to my hand. I do have this will hold enough moisture in there. It makes it easy for them to come through. You don't have that problem about having to worry about them getting stuck in the soil or anything like that. And you'll be happy about the way they come up. But it's as simple as that. Now, excuse me. Like I say, now all I'm going to do is I'm going to pat these down, and then I'm going to take this and water it in, and then I'll take and I'll put it in a tray that doesn't have any holes in it, and I have a dome to go over it. Now, if you don't have all that domes, you can use a plastic bag or something to keep the humidity in, because once I water these, when I plant these seeds and I water them in, these don't get watered anymore until after they all germinate and they're I take the dome off, because it'll keep the moisture in there, it'll keep the humidity at a good place, and they'll all germinate. Now, the reason why I have these in individual trays like this, if some of these germinate and I'm going to go ahead and pot them up, I can just take this tray out. I can leave the others sitting there until they germinate. Now, you don't have to have light for these to germinate, so they don't have to be somewhere where you worry about that they will get light. But they do have to have light as soon as they come up. They don't have to have any fertilizer when they're germinating. There's enough nutrients in here or in the seed itself to get it up and get it going until it gets its second leaves. Once it starts getting its second leaves, that's the time you need to start fertilizing it. And so don't worry about that. Now, a lot of even the peat moss now has some kind of certain amount of fertilizers. You can't find any, or I can't find any that don't have that situation. But like I say, don't intentionally add more fertilizer. Just give them a chance to grow, and we'll revisit these once they start coming up. But anyway, that's the way to do this. And like I say, this is the best way that I've found. If you want to do them individual in a cup or whichever way, or in the thing, well, get after it. But like I say, this way I can ensure that I don't have leggy plants. It's really good for that. And I'm just setting them. I've got a window right here with the baker's rack, and I'll just let these set here. They get just enough light. It'll warm this up a little bit, keeps the humidity a little bit better. Now, I've just taken that cover off of this particular one. Now, this is some rutabaga. A lot of seeds you can just direct plant into the ground, and rutabaga, you could do that, but in the cold weather you're going to have to worry about these below freezing temperatures that come through when you start getting down into the 26 and like that, even maybe a little bit above that. It's going to kill these little plants. Now, I'll go ahead and I pull out the extra ones, but this allows me to whenever I put these rutabaga in the garden, I can space them out to where I get larger plants and larger rutabaga roots. So that's something to consider. But you can see how leggy these plants are. They're stretching up for the sun. Now, these will go out today. They'll go under my grow lights. I've got some that's some other brassicas out there that need to go out to the greenhouse. So you need to have enough space if you're going to start a lot of seeds. Take that into consideration. Most small gardeners, they can get by with maybe a single grow light, because you can grow a lot of plants starting your seedlings under a little grow light. So, take that into consideration. All right. I have my different varieties of sweet peppers here. Now, I'm gonna plant these the same way. I was gonna put them into individual cell trays, but it's takes a little more time to take them and prick them out and put them into the trays. But like I say, you still end up with the same thing. You still end up with less leggy plants, and that way you don't end up with having cell trays that have seeds that haven't germinated. This works really well. It takes up a whole lot less work from your work area. From your growing area. So what I'm going to do, I'll just go ahead and put perlite on these, and I'll water them in the same way, and then I'll go to my hot peppers, which I have quite a few varieties. Now with this, I have my Black Beauty eggplant, because it's time to start those two. And that's the main thing, is to get these seeds started. And when you go this route, as far as you'll have them all germinating at the same time. Now, if you have older seeds, sometimes this might not be the best route if you have some real old ones that you haven't taken care of good, because they might not have as good germination rate. For me, I have older seeds like that, so I just put more in the my little cells, so that I'll ensure that I have good germination. I always plant a lot more seeds than I need, and even whenever they all come up, I still pot them up, and that ensures that you have them in case something happens. You have some kind of a pest comes in and damages some of your early seedlings. Maybe a rabbit comes in and bites them off, or whatever, cutworms. But that way it ensures you have some extras to replace them. And if you don't need them, I'm sure there's friends or family that would enjoy to have some of them. But anyway, let me finish these up. All right, I have them all watered in. Now, one thing I want to stress, or maybe a couple of things, is whenever I plant in seed trays, most pepper seeds say about 1/4 inch deep. A lot of people say twice the depth of the seed. But anyway, when I plant in seed trays, normally I only plant about 1/8 inch deep, because you're not dealing with factors like you would if you were planting out in the soil in the garden. Because in the garden, it's a lot harder to keep the top of the soil moist, so it tends to dry a little bit more and such. When you put them in here and they're in a have a humidity dome over the top of them, they take and germinate real well, because they have plenty of moisture. The other thing is, don't get impatient. A lot of these seeds, like your peppers, can take up to 3 weeks before they'll pop out, and if they're older seeds, they might even take longer. A lot of times, the older your seed is, the longer it takes to germinate. That's why a lot of people use fresh seeds, so they ensure that they germinate quicker, But if you allow you enough time, old seeds, you can germinate them fine. Now, usually peppers, most of the time they'll start germinating 7 to 10 days. Tomatoes, usually I see them up 3 to 5 days. But like I say, if they're not in that time period, don't worry. If you're a first-time gardener, give them some time. As long as you've got them in where they're in a tray with some kind of humidity dome. If you need to build something, you can take a tote and set them in it and just put the cover on it. That'll work like a mini greenhouse. Just don't put it directly in the sun, because it'll heat up too much. But if you put a heat pad underneath, it's going to germinate them quicker. So understand that. I germinate most of mine in a climate-controlled area, like my workshop here. And then once they germinate, I take them out into the main part of my shop that isn't heated. And the cool weather and growth, they grow slower, but it makes them hardier. They'll be thicker stemmed, and such as that. Now I have all my hot peppers there, And as you can see, some I plant a lot of seeds, some a little less, depending on how many peppers I need. And I've got 18 varieties. Now I'll put some perlite on the top of these. But anyway, this is basically, if you're going to start seeds, this is the easiest way to do it without taking up a lot of room. This gives you a little bit more time to prepare a space if you're going to put them into bigger cell trays. And you can take and select your best plants out of this too. So if you have some that germinate quicker, those might be a little more vigorous, so you might want those particular ones whenever you start putting them into cell trays. But anyway, we'll go through this process as we go along. It won't be long. These will come up, and then we'll take and we'll go through the steps of pricking them out and putting them into individual cell trays. But I hope this video is helpful. If you want to see more and you want to follow up on this starting your seeds, remember, the most important thing is don't start your seeds according to what zone you're in, because it has nothing to do with the zone. It has to do with your average last frost date. And you can download off the internet. There's a lot of charts that'll tell you when to plant certain seeds to get your transplants ready, and a lot of them will tell you which ones to put directly in the ground. Now, a lot of seeds that are direct ground planted, I plant in cell trays too, such as collards and lawsonata kale and stuff like that. That way I don't just waste a lot of seeds, and I can space them, and I get them a jump start, so when they do go in the ground, they're a little bit more healthy and vigorous, so they really start jumping and going. But anyway, you want to see more, like I say, subscribe, hit that bell button so you'll be notified, and give it a big thumbs up and share this video. It helps my channel. Happy gardening.